The National Council of University Research Administrators is pleased to bring you the new and improved Uniform Guidance to CFR, Final Revisions, Benefits, and Implementation Plan with Gil Tran. My name is Tara Bishop, and I'm happy to be here supporting the webinar this afternoon. Gil joined Attain Partners Research Enterprise Services Practice in August of 2023 as a Senior Specialist Leader. A distinguished and honored veteran of the Office of Management and Budget, we are so thrilled to welcome Gil to the webinar this afternoon. Gil has a wealth of knowledge and perspective to share with us and a heart for others. Time with Gil is truly good for the mind and spirit. Please join me in welcoming the one and only Gil Tran.
Tara, that was wonderful. Thank you so very much. And I have to say I'm excited and very happy to be here. I do want to thank Ancora for hosting this webinar, once again. It doesn't seem that long ago that, we have a webinars in November when the proposed revision was put out to the 2 CFR Uniform Guidance. And I know that the 2 CFR Uniform Guidance and close and dear, to you. So I would like to thank Ancora for giving, well, it's dear to me too. That's why I want to thank Ancora for giving me that opportunity to give you some exciting news. I believe that in November, we have a webinar that what I call extreme makeovers, the 2 CFR Uniform Guidance revision. And it was an extreme makeovers because they took a little shack and turned into a mansion. So I'm really thrilled and happy to be here to communicate with you some of the not all, some of the final revision, its benefit, and most importantly, the implementation plan. As you know, the final revision was put out on April 22nd of 2024. So it's just barely a month ago, but a lot of activity has going on, including what I'm going to preview at the end on the implementation date and so on and so forth. So let's get right into it. Tara was saying that we're going to have a 75-minute formal presentation. If you have a Q&A question, we're going to have 2 breaks that are going to answer those questions that Tara, when you put in the queue, I can answer to you. But at the end, we have 15 minutes that you can raise your hand and ask questions as well. So back in November of last year, we did a webinar, on the proposed. And at that time, I believe I comment that the OMB was very aggressive in this extreme makeovers, of the uniform guidance, because at that time, the comment was due on December 5th, and OMB in their RFP, request for proposal, already say that they're going to put it out, in finalized in December. And I thought it was a little bit more aggressive. And it turned out to be true. And it turned out to be true only because they received a lot of comments. They received about 829 letters, from you all. And I believe I encourage all of you to have an input on the proposed revision. So they received a lot of comments with 829 comments, and it's equal to about 3,200 separate comments that they had to review. That's going to explain, they did not meet the December deadline, but I have to give kudos to OMB and the federal agency to take a look at those comments and respond to them and deliberate and finalize it, in April, for the final revision. So they did a lot of homework. That's also mean that they really give care and consideration. As another proof to it, as I go through the revision, I'm going to kind of lay it out to you why I believe that they have done a great job in considering, all the comment that was the input in. So the program today is very simple. The final revision, I'm going to spend the bulk of my time on that, along with the benefit that go with those final revision. And it's going to spend, I would like to at least spend 15 minutes on the timing and implementation plan. The things that you need to be aware of the change and how you're going to implement it. Another nice thing that OMB did, which I think is great, they did two things, actually three things that I thought was great. So in the Federal Register, they put all the final revision out on April 22nd. That's a formal date. But they also, have a rollout on April 4th, like 3 weeks before, so people kind of, aware of what's coming, because they know that was a really robust revision that people have to worry. The second nice thing that they did is the implementation date, usually 90 days, but they're gonna have the implementation date for this one is all the way up to October 1st, which is much more than the 90 days, or sometimes to do that immediately as well. And the third thing I'm gonna point out to you as well, that they did have a red line copy of what was there before the revision and what is now. And that's really helped me, and it's probably going to help all the grantees out there to figure out what has been changed since they put out. So let's get right into it. The objective is simple, as I say: understand the final change and get ready for the implementation. I'm going to dive right in and kind of explain this slide a little bit to you, because I think in order to understand, appreciate, and fully comprehend, the final revision, you have to take a look of, the reason they're doing this. OMB do not revise the 2 CFR too often, as you already know that. The original uniform guidance was created in 2013. That's the original, when we combine all the 8 OMB circular into one document. And 2013, the agency had 1 year, 365 days to implement that and make it applicable to the award. But since 2013, the only other revision that we have, major revision that we have, was to 2020. That's the last revision that I was involved with in 2020. But that was only a few things that was required, for us to amend in accordance to law. It was not a major revision. This one is a major revision, and I'm so glad that we have OMB give us plenty of time to kind of understand it and plenty of time to implement it, because as I will tell you at the end, at the last section, there's something that your organization, your institution need to consider before implementation. There's a lot of decision and steps that you need to take. So to understand a little bit is to understand what is President Biden and Harris administration priority were right coming in. CE, this probably easy to remember. The first C stands for COVID. The first E stands for economy. Second C stands for climate, and the last E is equity. So the whole thing, the whole priority of this administration was, since day one, was CEC, COVID, getting rid of COVID, get the economy going, taking care of climate, and introduce some kind of equity. And so that's going to help you kind of understand a little bit on why some of the revisions are made, in the final phase. So for one example already, on the economy, that the OMB create the 2 CFR Part 184 Buy in America preference for infrastructures that was put out last year in August 2023. And I just want to bring that out, because it's not only an example of what this administration is doing, but it also is also applicable to you all. In terms of, it's applicable to all federal award and contracts. It is in 2 CFR Part 184, a new part, so you need to be familiar with that. Is applied to all infrastructure with the broadest definition that you can have. So if you have a research project by NIH, and the primary is research, so it's not an infrastructure project. But if in that research project you have to modify the labs, you have to do reconstruction, do remodeling and stuff like that. That is in this definition is infrastructure project, and you have to comply with the 184 Buy America products and so on and so forth. So the same things, that happened with the two CFR revision that I'm going to highlight to you. OMB put out an RFI request for information to solicit, ideas on what area that need to be, they need to change. They know there's going to change. They know administration have some priority. They did a very nice step in also asking, for input from outside organization. I believe they received about 130 letters or something like that. Not huge, but the big organization like GAO, the state auditors, and COGA, put in their letters, in terms of what area they think is priority to them. So the RFI was issued on February 13, 23, and they finally looking at massaging it and do all the reconstruction and remodeling of the uniform guidance that was put out, in the Federal Register on October 5th. So we did our webinar on November, right after that. So, and the comment was due December 5th, 60 days after the RFP. The final revision was done, was officially put out in the Federal Register on April 22nd or 24. By the way, you can see on my slide there, where you see that little link, I already include the link, to you. So you can, the first link that you see there is the April 22nd publication itself. And the other thing that I told you that was very nice thing for OMB to do was the red line copy, which is under the CFO.gov, because it's not an official document, but it is a tool that kind of help you in terms of figured out, what section have changed. The other thing that is not too nice from OMB was they rolled it out on April 4th. I think they have they rolled it out in the White House itself at the old executive office building. They have about, I would say, 50 people out there. I was included. They have a webinar. I think they say that 6,000 people signed in to look at it, to roll it out. The not nice thing is, that day was April 4th. And a few days after that, I was leaving for Spain on April 7th. So I said, oh no, now I have to bring, this, final revision with me to take a look at it and kind of study it, because I know right away when I come back from Spain a couple of weeks later, I need to get on with the analysis, of the study. So I'm leaving for Spain. A couple of days later, I'm bringing this whole thing with me. So, if I can indulge you, I'm going to share some of my experience, from take a look at the final revision while enjoying the Spain at the same time. So I'm going to share, some picture of Spain with you if you don't mind. So this is the first one here. Right away off the bat, I'm reviewing the old circulars. I'm reviewing the new circulars and, the new uniform guidance. And it hit me, see, this is perfect because right away, from day one, I can see the old and the new Spain, right? I see like a Roman village that was there centuries ago, in contrast with where I stay in Madrid, in the central Madrid. Actually the quarter that I live in, we stay in, is called Cologne. We stand for Columbus. So Columbus was the big deal there. And you can see here the big used picture of Julia. Julia is honored because she was the first female student who attended law school in Madrid back in the 1800s, and she had to dress up as a man to attend the law school. So she's kind of get honored right now. So right away, comparing the old uniform guidance, and the new uniform guidance, and I right away feel the same thing when I travel Spain with you. So right off the bat, the first change that you're going to see in the Title II is the Title II is not Title II for grants and agreements no more. The first thing they changed is Title 2 now is for federal financial assistance. Not a big deal. Not a big deal, but some people kind of like did not like that grants and agreement are not included because we saw accustomed to it. But federal financial assistance, because it's include more than just grants and corporate agreement, is also include direct payment, is also include loan and donation and stuff like that. So now is the Title II is renamed federal financial assistance. You need to be aware of this. I'm not going to talk about this today, but you need to be aware that under the Title II, there are all this part that that applicable to your grants at your institution, all the way from Part 1, 25, 170, 175, 180, 182, 183, the new one, 184, and the one that I'm going to talk about today is Part 200. But be aware that OMB make a revision, some of them small, some of them huge, in order support that you need to be aware of, but I don't have time, to talk about today. I just give you an example right now. I'm sure that you are familiar with Part 170, which is regarding reporting subaward and executive compensation compensation information. You are familiar that if you have subaward, that you as the primary, you have to do some type of reporting, the up the chain. So that's Part 170. Did have some revision to it, as well. By the way, the picture here is one of those towns, in Spain called Antequera, and it was named, it's a Latin name given by the Romans. And when the Romans naming something old, that's really old, and you can see it's real old. You can see the old man's face, sleeping right there. But it's a beautiful old town, in Spain. So be aware, all this part apply to you. From, but I don't have time to talk about, but because you just dive into the 200. Another thing that I always kind of believe that it help if you don't get intimidated, by the uniform guidance. It's a big document, and this one is this one is no different. It's still a big document. The one that help you though is know the part that apply to you. There are subpart, in the 2 CFR in the uniform guidance from A to F. If you know the part that apply to you and know it by heart, then you get halfway there. The part may or may not apply to you. So the subpart A is acronym and definition. Definitely you need to know about that. The subpart B is general. You need to know both the federal and the recipient need to know about it. The subpart C for the pre-award, you don't need to know too much about it. It's mostly a requirement for the federal, what to do, with all the grants on the federal side. Subpart D is you. Subpart D is the post-award. For those of you who deal with the OMB circular, this is the old OMB circular A110, if you remember that. And by the way, if you know exactly what I'm talking about at A110, I think I want to congratulate you because you are probably eligible for retirement now if you know what A110 and A21 means, right? So that's the truth. That's the truth. If you know A110, A21, then you're probably eligible, for retirement right now. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, the subpart D, you need to know. That's the recipient. I put it right there. The subpart E is basically your kitchen. This is where it's all that is the cost principle. Both federal and recipient need to know that by heart. So, and the subpart F, if you don't deal with single audit, no worry about that, right? So audit. And then the appendices is interesting. If you are dealing with preparing F&As, this is your support that you need to know by heart. If you don't do with F&A, no worry about that. So I think this is, I hope this is gonna help you kind of concentrate, on this, because as I say, this revision and this whole thing is pretty used. I believe that I count the page. I see the whole document is 650 pages. Half of that is preamble. And in the preamble, this is where I believe that I'm so glad that OMB kind of, write a very robust preamble, because that's where they discuss, how they come up with a final decision. So that's giving me evidence that they did look at your comments and put it in the preamble, explain it why they come up, with the final revision. So I give, OMB plenty of kudos, for that. So let's get right into it. The purpose, the reason that OB put out in for revision is, is four of them. Incorporate statutory requirement, administration priority. I told you about the administration priority. Reducing agency, recipient, and burden. Clarifying the interpretation, and rewrite, in plain language. Those are the four. I kind of highlight the yellow one for you because I think the revision, I think that the revision they have made address these two the most. Mostly to take care of the administration priority. That's why I want to give that to you right in the beginning. And also reducing agency and recipient, your burden on it. The other thing is maybe it does not that much of impact on your day-to-day life for research administration. By the way, that link right there on the bottom, is the same day that they put out on April 4th. They also put out an OB reference document. Have a chance, take a look at it. It's very interesting because in there they kind of lined up all the revision that they did with the priority or the objective they have. So in that reference, document, they have more than those four objectives. They also include evaluation, data, community engagement and public participation, the no-fault notice of funding opportunity, labor, and burden reduction. So it's 6 of them that they give, in that reference, document that they put out. So it's interesting, and they lined up this section address this and this, and I'm gonna touch on a couple major ones for you later on the change. But this is what they have. The Biden administration is big on this on this revision. Okay, so it addressed a lot of the administration priority. On April 4th, the day that they rolled out, at an event at the White House, they put out this thing, on the White House, website, and you can see right there. I have the link for you there, but I just want to highlight a couple things, for you in terms of the rollout. They say that research and development that help our industry remain world leader in health and science and technology is one of the main purpose of federal financial assistance. What you do at your university in terms of research and development really are one of the main focus, for grants. And in conclusion, they say that this update to what is known as uniform guidance will streamline and clarify requirements for federal funding. So this is the objective, and these changes will allow agency and recipient of federal funds to focus more time and money on delivering meaningful results for the American people. So you can see that, the White House is very proud of this final revision, and they hoping that this really simplify the requirement, streamline, all the requirement, and help your life, much easier. Okay, so the link is right there if you're interested in it. And I can tell you right now that they were right in terms of this final revision is pretty much robust. I take a look at the 6 subparts that I told you about and the appendices. They are in total they are 191 sections, in there, and I break it out by how many sections they have made change, in the 200. And it added up to be 69. 69 out of 191 sections in all those areas, have some kind of change to it. You can see that your part, the A110, the old A110 subpart D, have the most change. 53% of it, has been changed, and the total the entire section change is almost 40%. at 36%. So this is a major change that you need to be aware and take benefit from it actually. But by the way, the picture I have there is not French fries, although French fries is good too. This is what they call, the Spanish churros, and the churro in Spain you eat churro at breakfast. Actually, you can do it all day. Actually, churro at breakfast and you eat with a thick chocolate. It's wonderful. Trust me. Okay. So food for thought right there. Okay. So major change. Now I'm gonna delve into every section or the subpart. And by the way, Tara, not sure Tara mentioned in the beginning, she's gonna send a slide to you right after the session. To you, you don't need to take pictures or anything. Just kind of follow, my thoughts, on my observation on all this change. So this slide will be shared to you. And also, you will notice on every slide that I have, the section that I refer to, I put in parentheses at the end. So for example, in the prior approval, which is a new definition, I also include that the section 200-308-EF4. Okay, so I have all the reference for you, so it's going to be very access, for you, to follow up. But okay, so and we need to talk about definition. We need to talk about definition because it does have some change there. Yet you need to be that you definitely need to be aware of. The two new ones that they have on there are for-profit organization. No concern that because, but I think they want to define it here. So in the future, some of the requirement going to be applied for profit. So they want to define that. They are defining the new term for participant. The new participant, they have a new definition for that. The bigger one though, the bigger definition change is definitely equipment and supply is now is from $5,000 to $10,000 now, and the new definition of MTDC, modified total direct cost, which is used for calculating indirect cost rate and also recovering indirect cost reimbursement, is redefined to $50,000. One definition that you need to be aware of is intangible property. The definition there is definitely expanded, and this is one back. I forget what year it was now, back in the 90s somewhere, where we have redefined intangible property on how the government have access to what is intangible property produced, by the contract. There was we have all the right to data and stuff like that. That was a big deal at that time. So I want you to kind of notify this a little bit on intangible property. The different definition of intangible property now is expanded to include data, website, trade secret, patent, intellectual property, and software. So it's used. So think about that. Think about, is your research project produce any of those type of intangible property, then the government gonna have, some equity into it. So it expanded to that. So that's big. The prior approval is also a new definition in there, and it say that all prior approval must be in writing. So no more verbal, prior approval. Oh, I receive a phone call and they're okay with this travel. No, it have to be in writing. So they kind of change that. And it's something that the university have wanted. Special purpose equipment now include associate software to it. This is something that university have wanted, and OMB incorporate in the final. You won't see the word federal awarding agency anymore. I think OMB thing is redundancy, so that they just truncated to anything that was federal award agency before is now a federal agency. So the awarding is deleted. Say goodbye to non-federal federal entity. They replace that with recipient and subrecipient, and say goodbye to F&A. F&A has been there since 2000 something. Which means facility and admin to break it out between those two functions. Now F&A is gone, it's all indirect costs. So those are some of the change there. Okay, so we already moved from A, right? Remember, A is not that a big deal, it's definition, but some of the definition that you need to be aware of. Now we move already into the subpart B, which is general. Not too many things, happening there that you need to worry about, but there's two things. As well, two things. I list three, but there's two things that you need to be aware of. To be aware of is the applicability table is now gone. So basically, they convert that into wording. So if you receive some type of contract or something like that, cost reimbursement contract, used to have a table, what's the part it applied to. Now the table is gone, it's all replaced by wording, in there. So that table that I talk about in 200-101 is now gone. In the exception, not to worry too much, you have to worry too much, but the OMB did give the agency authority to give exception when it's authorized by statutory. So they give that. In the past, only OMB can give those type of exception. And one nice thing is what they propose to include in there, deviation in there is dropped. Because I was worried that if they include deviation in there, OMB can sometimes include extra limit that was not supposed to be there. So they dropped that at the end, so you don't need to worry about. What you do need to worry about is the next one. This is the one that I think you need to probably discuss with your general counsel's office, your controller's office, and so on implementation about this policy here. They add credible evidence under section 200-113 that credible that when you have credible evidence of various criminal violation, then you have to report it. You have to promptly disclose in writing to the federal agency, OIG, or pass-through entity, whatever it applies. Unfortunately, even though a lot of commenters say that, hey, we don't know what credible evidence is, they only did not include any definition for credible evidence in that section. But in the preamble itself, they include that credible the credible evidence is similar to the false, and I put the false. It's not in the uniform guidance. It's in the preamble that they say that credible evidence have the same meaning as the FAR 73 FR 67064. So that's where you need to go to. And when I look at the FAR, it basically say that the credible evidence as applicable to them, it have a higher standard than reasonable ground to believe, and that basically allow you some preliminary examination of evidence. So when you have some evidence, you don't have to immediately report to the Fed. You have time to kind of examine, make sure that the evidence is okay. But this is something that I believe that you need to talk with your general counsel in terms of what policy you need to be in place, because it's happening. And it's really encouraged and suggest by the IG community to have the credible evidence in here. So it's there now. Okay, so we already we're moving fast. We already leaving part, we are leaving subpart B. By the way, I'm going through all this, and the same time I'm going through this, I feel like I'm back in Spain a little bit, because I feel like I'm visiting those Prado museum in Madrid, or Reina Sofia in Madrid, going through those wonderful museums, and I can only showing you the highlight of some of the wonderful artwork there. I mean that's definitely my feeling, because there's no way I can cover all the revision on it, so I can give you the highlight. So we already go through part A, part B, and now part C. And after the part C that I highlight to you, we're gonna stop Tara, for if anybody has submit any question or for verification. So subpart C is not a part that you have to worry too much about either, except for these two things here that somehow get into part C, which is mostly, the government responsibility for, pre-award, putting out, notice of funding and stuff like that. But these two things that I want to note it out. And for one thing, they revised the fixed award amount in section 201, the use of all the instrument. They refine it, and these are the refinements that you need to be aware of. No review of actual costs and financial reporting. If you have a fixed amount award, they have proposed to have no cap, that you can have any type of, $12 million, $100 million, no cap on fixed award amount. In the final revision, they cap it back to 500. So it's not no cap, it's only up to 500. But it is up from 250 before, so it's still good. And this explained a little bit further in section 333. They still require a pre-approval from the fair agency. I believe a lot of commenters say that maybe we should not have a pre-award requirement either. They did not. They did not remove that. So you still have pre-approval from federal agency if you want to give a fixed award amount to a sub. You still need to federal agency approval. This is kind of curious myself on how this is going to apply. They do require a certification at the end of the completion of required activity, which is fine. Right? You say that, you complete all the activity before I pay you, but they also say that the costs have to comply with 200-403, which is all the reasonable, allocable, and allowable costs, allowable cost factors. So they say that, at the end, you still have to certify that you complete all the work and all, that you comply with section 403. So that's a little curious for me on what they mean there. But the two nice things that they did have on clarify is that the grantee are entitled to all the unexpended fund, and they clarify in another section 400G, that all the unexpended funds are not considered profit. Evidently, we put this thing in 2013 for the fixed award amount. We encourage, a lot of agency to use it, and they did. And then we encourage, the grantee to use it, and they did. But some IT come back and say, wait a minute, what's going on with all the unexpended balance? And also, are those unexpended, fund considered profit? So it will be very nicely clarify that. I gave you a highlight thing in blue, so you need to be aware of. There's a recent NSF report, audit report, that was put out just in March of 06-24, regarding specifically for the fixed amount award. And what they found here is they found a university have used a fixed award amount tool to grant it out, for a project, but that project was $1.5 million or something like that. It was way above the 150 at that time. So they questioned the whole thing. I think they questioned $1.1 million of that. So if you are dealing with the fixed award amount areas, I think you need to take a look at this report that I highlight to you there and say that requirement of pre-approval from fair agencies still applies, which they say they did get some kind of consent, from NSF on it, but they're not real clear that NSF really approved it. For definitely, they went over the amount that was allowed at that time. So now the 500 still apply. So that's some additional information there. The other thing that they clarify and subpart C that I think was very, very nice is they clarify in 2020 already put out put out a restriction on the use and buying of telecommunication of video surveillance, by some Chinese company. I think Huawei was one of them, but there's other as well in there. That was 2020. It was required by the law under the National Authorization Defensive Act. So they implemented. By the way, that's the one that they make it effective immediately the day that was put out, which is August something in 2020. So now they clarify that you cannot use your federal fund to buy the telecommunication of video surveillance, but you can use it. If your university is using its own money or somehow get donation from that company, on the services, you can use this and you're not going to be disallowed, for your grant not going to be disallowed. So I think that's very nice, clarification. Okay. Tara, I'm gonna stop right here because we finished A, B, and C, and see if we have any question in the pipeline.
We do.
Okay.
The first one is to utilize the increase from the first 25,000 to 50,000 for each subaward. Does our institution have to renegotiate our indirect cost agreement in addition, or is the change in UG by itself sufficient for the definition of MTDC?
That's a very nice question, and I'm glad somebody on the ball, with that. And yes, you cannot use you cannot automatically increase the 25 to 50,000 right away. You have to wait to the next indirect cost proposal when new rates are being proposed, negotiated, and agreed on. So yes, you cannot apply starting October 1st, then you can increase from 25, to 50. But by the way, it's only applicable to anything that happened after October 1st. So all the sub award that you have right now, you still, you cannot change it. I mean, there's good reason for you not to change it because you're going to recover more indirect costs on it, and it may hurt the budget, for the PIs. But the rate that is negotiated and agreed on right now is based on an MTDC base that was done before. So it's only going to be applicable, Tara, for the sub award that started on or after 10/1 of 2024. Another question?
Yeah. If the DS2 is going away, what are the expectations to continue to use it for FAR requirements?
Okay, so I'm going to answer in the next one if you don't mind, because that's part D. It's coming though. It's coming. One more Great. Question.
Okay. Please expound on your comment that now the government will have some small amount of equity in intangible property. How does one define portions of equity as in an intangible?
Okay, so basically, if you take a look at that section, I'm going to move back to that. That's a good question, by the way. Thank you. I want to kind of so it's in definition, and I think I have another slide on it because that's intangible property expanded. So basically, intangible property, right? So it basically is in the past is basically patent and copyright. That was in the intangible property section, which kind of skipped my mind now, but it's coming, so don't worry about that. So they expand the definition, then it's not just copyright and patent, because the government, when you create something that that you turn into a patent or you turn to copyright, the government can use it. You can benefit from your patent and copyright and earn money of it. But if the government want to use your patent to further the research, for example, then they have equity on it. So just expand that equity right that the government have to more things now that I just mentioned to you, to software, to data, website, trade secret, patent, intellectual property, and so on and so forth. So you need to kind of appreciate, the expansion of the government property on all those things. Thank you for those questions, Tara, and folks, out there. Those are great. So I'm going to move on because I'm gonna talk about that a little bit. So we have done A, B, and C, and we now move into subpart D. And I have to tell you, when I was in Madrid, this is one of my highlight here. I did not know what I'm going to get into, but I was, I was at one of the museums, Sofia, Reina Sofia Museum, the Queen Sofia Museum, and I was standing right in front of this, masterpiece by Picasso, which covered the whole room. The masterpiece is Guernica, and is one of the Picasso most famous museum. And when I look at it, I immediately feel anxious and depressed and so on and so on, not without, knowing what it is about. And I find out what it's about is about, the horrible thing that happened in this town where the German bomb just dropped, on them for testing, and that this is one of the most anti-war picture that, that I see there. Not anything related to the subpart D, huh? Okay, just just happened to be, one of my highlights, and you can see how many people, is in front of that huge, the whole room pictures. And I have to say, everybody's in that room, you hear no noise, you hear no giggling, you hear no noise, no, just a little talking about explaining what's going on. So nothing related to part D, because I think subpart D, you have a lot of a lot of nice things that happening happening right here. The first thing is you will notice that in section 300, OMB have deleted the reference to Fafatas. That and a lot of people doing my presentation or say, what's going on? Is Fafata requirement gone? I'm sorry to tell you that it's not gone. They just take out the reference in the national policy areas, but the part 170 on Fafata requirement for sub-reporting is still there. But they add 2 sections on discrimination based on sex orientation and gender identity. I have to tell you, I think I told you that OMB received 829 letters of comment. I would say at the minimum 200 of those letters are against putting this national policy, in this in this. And OMB have a preamble that was very robust in terms of answering why they decide at the end for equity reason that the discrimination against sex orientation and gender identity is one of them that they want to put in there, based on the Supreme Court case, by the way. So it's stuck on here. Most of the the 300 comments that received negatively about this inclusion of faith-based organization, who say that if you include in here, it's going to cut off our practice completely in terms of participate in federal grants. But that's I want to highlight to you. Probably doesn't impact you at all in your research, but this is one of the things that they receive a lot of comments on it, and won't be stick with what they have proposed. The other thing is they reaffirm the voluntary uncommitted cost sharing in section 306. And in section 306, before they just refer to this OMB memo that, I was working on it, by the way, all the way back in during Clinton areas, 2001. They put out this memo that voluntary, if university have voluntary that are uncommitted cost sharing on a project, they should not be included in the research base or allocate any cost allocation to it. It was in the memo that it was include just a reference for the memo before, but now the whole sentence is in there. So make it extra clear that there's a special treatment for voluntary uncommitted cost sharing. They refine budget revision to 10 must item. So it's very clear when you revise a budget, which are the 10 items in section 308 that you have to worry about. I already talked about the equipment and supply threshold from 5 to 10. By the way, look at this section very carefully, the 313 and 314, because OMB giving you more flexibility on what to do with the unused supplies. Okay, there was some more restriction before, but now you are more flexible in terms of the unused supply, for it. And I talk about the intangible property definition at expansion on it, and that's section 315. They changed it in the definition, and under the 315, they also say that agency should be able to, if you are working on a project that impact that agency want to publicize, put that in the public access repository, that they will have access to those data. So they add that in there. So I think that's one of the major things that you need to be aware of. Okay, still in subpart D. Subpart D have 2 slides. Subpart E have 2 slides because they have a lot of change that you need to be aware of. And now come the hot flamencos. That's wonderful flamencos in Spain. You cannot get but enjoying it, and the passion, everything that relate to it is just wonderful. So the subpart D, the first thing you will notice that they allow the Indian tribe to follow their own procurement. In the past, only the state follow their own procurement, and the tribes have to follow like the rest. I'm sorry, university, you still have to follow. You are not considered as a state organization, so you still have to follow all the requirements that's applicable here. You will see a bunch of change. So this is an area, if you're working in procurement, you need to take a look at your procurement policy and need to update, because now they allow the use of project labor agreement. They eliminate the prohibition on using geographic preference. You have to add veterans-owned business and green products in there. So the whole things about procurements you need to change. One thing that I'm happy I can report to you that I'm very happy that didn't change is the Tran procurement clause are still going to apply. You still have 5 types of procurements that you can count on your fingers, and each one going to follow. So the procurement bear clause, if you follow me since 2013, it still remain, but it's a little bit different now. I think I told you about raising the threshold for fixed award amount of sub award to 500. So listen, it's not uncapped. It's still at 500K. And one thing that they did, it was I think that is pretty big, is in 2020, just a few years back, they add a termination clause that in 340 parenthesis 2, that the federal government can, or the pass-through entity can terminate a project because it's no longer fit with the direction that of the administration, or basically the agency. So if it's not fit anymore, is a one-way termination. They eliminate that. So the 342 is now no longer exists. So you go back to have to be agreed. If you want to terminate a project, you have to be from both sides. Okay, so okay, so now more beautiful flamencos, and I'm just happy to be in one of those flamenco festival, there. But this is some wait a minute. So we finished D. We already into E, and I can tell you, this is your kitchen. In extreme makeovers, the renovation of the kitchen is you need to know exactly, and this is where the auditor is going to spend their time too, in terms of the cost principle. And what I tell you right now, I want to dwell a little bit another layers, give you some additional information. Anything that I highlight here in yellow, I have another additional slide to kind of tell you what I'm talking about. So one nice thing right off the bat, they're removing prior approval for 9 items. They proposed 10, but they go back to 9. I'm going to highlight to you. Surprising. The second item on here, allow report of rate dispute to OMB, is just amazing. This is the first time the OMB have done that. And it's basically say in 414C that if you have an issue with your rate, indirect cost rate, whether it was submitted and it was never touched, and you've been waiting for 2 years, or if they want to limit your rate, if some federal agency want to limit your rate, you can come to mama. You don't need to come to dad. You don't need to go to dad. You come to mama right now and tell mama, how mama can help. So I think that's amazing. I don't know how they're going to do it for sure, but it's amazing they allow you, the grantee, to approach OMB and say that, hey, we need help with the rate. So I think it's pretty amazing to me. They also did reiterate that you need to use, if you have a negotiated rate, unless it's prohibited by some kind of law, then you can use the federal negotiated rate. They raised the de minimis rate, from 10 to 15%. It's still not allowed, for cost reimbursement contract. And one thing that you need to be aware of, if you deal with subaward, they are adding a new requirement that subrecipient, your sub, have to submit a similar certification to you. So that's a new requirement, all right? You have to certify that you comply with all the laws and regulation, uniform guidance, but it was not requiring the sub. Now the sub is required to do that. So you need to be aware of that. Okay, more exciting stuff. The first one here is probably the most exciting for college university. I have to say, I have a picture of the beautiful paellas there, wonderful food of Spain. But I got a feeling that the university appreciate my picture of the wicked witch even more. And they say that no one mourn the wicked witch. Nobody want one more shit. I can guarantee that university is not mourning the disappearance or elimination of the DS2. I'm going to come to that question. So what happened now that the DS2 is gone? The only requirement is, if you have a FAR contract, what you do to what you need to do now that the DS2 is gone. I have a question in, to ONR, the agency that deal with a lot of contracts. I have got no answer from it. So I'm not sure at this point what is requirement there. One of the things that I have advised, everybody is, with the DS2s gone, the university now to take a look at all the policy that's documented in the DS2 and convert into some kind of written documents or policy that that's required. And I will follow up. I would follow up, what's going on with the FARs, because I'm afraid that with the DS2 gone, I'm afraid that the only other option is the DS1 that is required for contractors. And I can tell you right now that the DS1 is 5 times as more complicated because it's for contractors than the DS2. I work on the DS2, so I know what the big difference, are. So once I find out from ONR, I will let, and Kuras know about either. But right now, it's up in the air on what the FARs, if you receive a FAR covered contract without the DS2, what document that you need to file to. Nothing on that yet. One thing you have to be aware that they, in blue, is for your caution, is that they require unused leave, the PTOs, the unused leave that you earn and then you leave to be allocated not on the project that you're working on your last day, but they have to revert back to and put into the general administrative pool. You cannot charge back to the fringe benefit pool. You have to charge it out as a general administrative pool, which can cause a problem because, as you know, all the university GA, DA, SPA pools are capped at 26. So putting in more in there, basically, the university gonna lose money and not recover. They do allow conference sponsor to provide dependent care for participants, which is good. In 2020, they allow that the conference sponsor can look at, for facility. Now they allow the conference sponsor to provide the dependent care for participants. They're adding prize to entertainment, meaning if you have a project and you have prize for it, for competition, for writing the best essay or something like that, and you get some kind of, Amazon gift card or something like that as a prize is now allowable. So I think that's good. And one more thing that may or may not make a big difference, at your institution, depending how efficient you close out your project. They allow close out costs up until report due date. In the past, it's terminated on the project end date. Now it's 120 days after that when your project report is due. Okay, now I'm going to delve right into it a little bit, and reducing 25 to 16%. So you can see that they eliminate 9 of them. So that's more than one third of the percent are eliminated. And you can see, all the listing on there. I'm going to do off a little bit because I think it's going to make the difference at university that on the direct costs, on direct administrative staff, they eliminate the prior approval for it. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean. The one prior approval that was proposed to be eliminated, but they retain it, was the exchange rate. But the 9 that you show on here has been eliminated. Okay, so
Hey, Gil.
Yes.
Hey, Gil.
Mm-hmm.
You had asked us to let you know when it was 3 o'clock because you're pacing your presentation, so it's 3 now.
That's perfect. That's perfect because we only have E and we only have F to go, and that's it. So that's perfect. Thank you, Tara. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And by the way, I'm going to jump back one page here because this is another highlight of my tour here is the mosque cathedrals in Cordoba. They call them Mesquita. Is one of the wonderful places. I have 3 pictures of that on here for you. But that's one of those things that started out as a church, built into a mosque, and then turned into a Christian church, and everybody at one time worshiped together. So now it's wonderful to see like a mosque and a church combined together. And I also have Jewish temple in there, as well. So one of my highlights that in my next few slides here. So anyway, this is what I'm referring to when they take care of, eliminate, one of prior approval requirement. And subpart E, it say that admin and clerical staff should normally treat as indirect costs. However, if you have some project that is huge enough that you need to hire, admin staff, secretary, and after support, then in the past you have these 4 conditions that you have to go to. The service have to be integral to the federal war. The individual can easily be identified. You have to approve prior approval or include in the budget for that project, and the costs are not also recovered as indirect costs. Number 3 is gone. With this revision, you don't have to include those costs in the budget, and you don't have to get prior approval from the Fed. So basically, what OB is saying, they trusting you to determine that that person is integral, to the federal war. They can be identified, and then you're not claiming that as indirect cost too. This could be a game changer here in terms of hiring some admin, clerical staff, and direct charge to the project. Okay. Okay. So another thing that is big that you need to consider. This is big because this is the first time since 1995 that OMB allowing a major type of cost. In 1995, they allow interest costs for nonprofit. 1995 is a long time ago. This is time they're allowing 2 type of costs that you need to be aware of. And a little surprised that they put that on the organization cost, but it's data cost and evaluation cost. And I put that verbatim because I think it's merit your analysis on what is really include. Because you take a look at data, it includes like the whole thing. It includes, your data system, your personnel system, your data dashboard, your cybersecurity, and so forth. That's all in the data cost that is now allowable. And also under evaluation, that also have things like feasibility assessment, evaluation, result, use of evidence, and evaluation for program design. It's a lot of cost that you can now allowable, for your grants. And another nice thing, they allow the either direct or indirect. So if it's the program that you feel like, you need some better data management, data evaluation, or some kind of program performance, then you can allow this cost. So I think this is pretty big. I have it in there verbatim for you. Okay, now we come down to the sunset. This is my last slide before we take a few more questions and move on. So the subpart F, as I say, the subpart F is audit. You don't need to worry about. There is some change in there, but I don't think you need to worry too much about, except for two things. They raised the audit threshold from 750,000 to 1 million. So that's going to allow a lot of smaller organizations not having to do a single audit, which can be expensive for a smaller organization. But for you need to be aware of what we need, what you need in terms of for sub-recipient monitoring. If you have relied on the single audit before, you have to be aware of some of them not going to have that single audit tool. They do allow federal costs and agencies to provide submission extension. If something happened, the auditor is late, submitting the audit report. Now the federal agency can do it. In the past, only OMB can do it. In the appendix 1 to 12, I think the biggest revision on there is the requirement for feds to re-streamline the NOFOs, add a new section on the NOFOs, add the definition of underserved community and disadvantaged community, and encourage plain language. The other revision are in the indirect cost area. I believe is appendix 3 to 6 or something like that, and it's basically dealing with the MTDC, the modified total direct cost. They did say that they are considering your future change to the uniform guidance. They received 60 comments on it, so that's a lot. And the 4 things that can jump up, to my attention is they want to add audit requirement for for-profit organization for future consideration now. They want to add research security requirement, which is, I think, is big. This is going to impact you tremendously. Right now, agency, NSF have their own things, DOD have their own things, NIH have their own thing on research security. It's all silo. OMB going to put that in the uniform guidance in the future. So they always commit to that. They want to remove more prior approval requirement. So that's good. And they want to address challenge related to indirect cost negotiation. So not only now you can come and talk to mama, they want to take a look at further how to streamline, the whole thing. Tara, I'm going to stop right here and see if you have any question. And I think I have like 3 more slides, and then we can open for Q&A. Do you have any questions?
Okay, great. I do.
Good,
so
good.
Does that mean unused leave cannot be charged as direct cost to a grant?
That's correct. So the specific language, in the revision is if you use a cash accounting basis, then all the unused leave cannot be charged, directly to the project that you're working on. They have to be spread out as a G&A to all the projects. I think it is a question of fairness, because you may have earned all those leave through 2 or 3 projects, and it's unfair for you when you leave to charge all the unused leave that you earn during your 10 years or maybe let's say 5 years doing 3 projects to the last project. Yes, so that's correct. You cannot charge as direct cost.
Okay. Can you clarify that section regarding allocating unused leave as general administrative costs? Do you think that was just covered in what we?
Yeah, I think that's basically say that you have to spread it out and not. They don't even. That's the last addition, because that requirement was not there previously, and they just added in, with this phase of revision.
Okay. Can you please confirm that prizes remain as an unallowable expense under the entertainment section?
It is now allowed. Prize is now allowed. Did you say unallow or allow?
Yeah, they said, can you confirm that they remain as an unallowable expense.
No, now it's allowable cost. How about that? Now it's allowable cost. So that's yeah. I think that could you know, I mean that's progressive, I think.
Okay. And then I'm confused about the removal for the fixed amount award requiring prior approval. I thought these still required prior approval, or is that only for issuing a fixed amount subaward?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you for that question. Yes, it's required when you, as a university, want to use a fixed amount award for yourself. The agency do not have to. The agency do not have to. If the agency wanted to grant you a fixed amount award, they have now the authority to do that. But remember, when you are having, and by the way, that's the NSF finding is that university did not have a written prior approval. They may have some. They claim that NSF is aware that they are doing the fixed amount subaward, but there's no written approval. Yeah, so that's the question is correct. You know, this is dealing with university giving out a fixed amount award to itself. Okay, I'm gonna move.
Oh, go ahead.
You want to move on, or you have one more?
No, you go ahead and move on. That's great.
Okay. So yes, thank you for those questions. By the way, that means that you are paying attention. You are very knowledgeable, and I trust that this group here, Tara, is a bright group, and research administration is like their top. So that's appreciate that. Okay. So the next slide is actually more important than this one, but I want to let you know that the kind of summarize a little bit that the White House rolled it out on April 4th. The final revision was officially published on April 22nd. On the same day that they rolled out, on April 4th, OMB put out implementation for all the agency to comply. The link to to that implementation memo is right there. Agency have to submit to OMB all their plan for implementation, by May 15th. A couple of weeks ago, they have to do that. They have to submit a no-fault template by August 1st of this year. In order to all the no-fault that's coming out starting 10/1/24, gonna have to follow the new template. By the way, it's very interesting because not only you have all the summary in this memo that OMB put out, not only you have to follow all the requirements that put out, in the revision, summary section, you have to include disadvantage, community and so on and so forth. OMB say that you have to reduce that no-fault by 25% of the previous memo no-fault, that you have to reduce the wording by 25%. So really concrete, specific goal that they have there. They have to update, the agency have to update their federal program inventory by June 1st, which has happened already a couple of days ago. And the Cognizant agency, they have to provide the list in order, for a grantee to request extension by May 4th. Okay, I think this is important, and I think I receive a lot of questions about this, so that's why I want to make very clear on the effective date. You hear that the final revision, officially, the final revision will be effective 10/1/01/24 for award issue on or after that date. Okay, that's the general. But in reality, there's 3 dates that you need to be aware of. So 10/1, October 1st, 2024, all the admin and allowable cost change going to become effective. So, for example, all your prior approval requirements are gone, right? Are gone for award to start after that date. And some of the costs like data evaluation, program evaluation costs are now allowable for those awards that start after that date. But the two things that you need to be aware of is if a change is required, a change in university-wide policy. So, for example, all the procurement that I talk about, including revising that, the equipment change, the single audit from 7 to $1 million, it impact the next fiscal year that starts on or after 10/1. An example: if your school start out in July 1st year and then end in June 30, the next fiscal year is July 1st, 2025, right? 2025, because that's the fiscal year that starts after 10/1. So that's why I highlight to you likely the impact on anything that is require a university-wide policy going to impact fiscal year 2026. One question about the indirect cost proposal, I think I kind of have answered that, but I want to make sure to you that anything that relate to indirect cost proposal is going to impact in the next proposal submission. So if you have a predetermined rate that already locked you up to 2027, the next time that you can have this type of change is going to be for you, your next submission, and impact your indirect cost of 2028, because you already locked up to 2027. By the way, I put in the OMB FAQ 2021 because FAQ 9 to 15 address exactly how we implement the effective date. So you have any, you want some additional insight on it, is that. But remember, 10/1 is just one day. The next fiscal year for anything that is that is system-wise, and for your indirect cost proposal, sub-award, and change like that, then you have to wait for the next indirect cost proposal submission. Two exception. If you have an indirect cost proposal in the house right now that is not been, you have submitted, but it's not been reviewed or negotiated, you can do some kind of impact statement on policy change, and when you negotiate it. And also, if you are interested in extending your current rate, the rate that you already negotiate, and you just want to extend it, then you can also do an impact statement in terms of in terms of the selling rate, that include all those changes. So on the impact, I want to kind of show you this. It's very simple, but the bottom line here is your rate's going to drop. You're probably going to recover the same amount of indirect cost, but the rate going to drop. So I'm going to go through this, in a very simple case here. The assumption that university is adopting the higher threshold for equipment and sub-award. Your current rate is 50%, 25 divided by 50. And so will have a change of equipment, because equipment is up now. So you add $1 million to the base, because you can include more into the base now. Your sub-award is $2.5 million. And this basic example is your university have 100 sub-award, and you can add 25,000 K to those award, and claim indirect cost on it and have to put in the base. So 2.5 million. Your equipment depreciation recapture is 0.5 million, because anything that was equipment before and now that is supplies, and you have not recapture, you can calculate an equipment depreciation recaptures on that. So the new computation that you have there, though, is your new F&A pool is going to be 25.5. Your new research-based MTDC is going to be 53.5. Your new indirect cost rate going to be 47.6. You will see a drop from 50% to 47.6%, but a rate drop of 2.34. But your recovery should be the same, because you're applying a lower rate to a bigger base. A very simple example, right there. Okay, I had actually, this is my next. This is the slide that I'm gonna stop, and we can take some Q&As. So now is the time. Now that you understand all the revision, now is the time for you to have all this implementation plan, because all the change is going to impact all these things that I'm going to talk about here. By the way, one question that's always come up to me as well is, do you have to raise your equipment threshold from 5 to 10, or do you have to raise your sub-award from 25 to 50? And the answer is no. It's your discretion. It's your university discretion to raise your 5 to 10. By the way, if you raise from 5 to 10 on the equipment, then your financial statement have to report the same. And if your state only allow, let's say 5,000 rather than 10,000 equipment, you still have to follow your state requirement for it. So there's a lot of homework that you need to do in preparation to that. And we appreciate that OMB gave us a lot of time to get this implemented, because you need to think all this through. So I think, in my mind, this is all that it is going to impact, through all this change. For policy change documentation, you have to change all this. For research policy, what you're going to do about equipment and sub-award. For procurement policy, I think I told you about that. Mandatory disclosure policy, you need to talk to the general counsel on how you're going to implement that. Indirect cost policy, with the DS2 elimination, now you have to convert all the things that in the DS2 into in some type of documentation for your policy. Your financial statement policy, your equipment, if you change in equipment, it have to be the same for your grants. It have to be the same for the indirect cost proposal. It have to be the same for the financial. And your internal control policy. I think I'm not sure. I did mention that OMB did say that for your internal control, you have to have policy related to cybersecurity. Not sure I say that now, but internal control is going to be impacted. For indirect cost planning, I think I told you already that effective for the next indirect cost submission, you must renegotiate rate if you want to benefit from a sub-award equipment threshold change, and you have to calculate your equipment depreciation recapture allowable. On the current projects that you're doing right now, that for award of STAR 10-1-24 that you submit a proposal to NIH or NSF right now, you have to worry whether you need to change for equipment threshold, change for sub-award threshold, possible change in indirect cost rate, possible allowable data and program. Should you include programs and data evaluation costs in there? What you need to do about direct administration. Maybe you can now you can include some of the clerical admin staff in your proposal. You have to worry also your fixed award amount award, whether you want to re-examine that a little bit more, because they have some clarification on that now. And also for your subrecipient, you have to plan ahead that what you're going to do for the one that don't receive a single audit report as well. I put on here monitor agency implementation plan. So far, they have keep it very close knit, so we don't know what no public records on the implementation, but it's required, to OMB. And by the way, this is one of the cutest, one of my favorite pictures from Spain here, and I think about Tara, I have to say right away, I think about Ancora when I see these pictures, because this is in one of those museums where Picasso, the painting is, and all over the museum, you will see a group of students sit, faithfully looking at, the painting and appreciate, the teacher explanation of the painting. And you can see that most of them are very attentive and appreciate what they're learning. And Tara, I have to say right away that what if we start teaching uniform guidance to our younger kids, second grader as well. Maybe that way they will appreciate the research administration better. We need to build the next pipeline for research administrator, and that's where Tara, I think immediately, and Ancora has always been the most wonderful organization in terms of outreach, communication, training, and so on and so forth, and say, hey, Ancora have to take over this and teaching our young kids, on the 2 CFR. So I have one more slide that I'm going to use for closeout. Closeout, and now Tara, we can open the session up for live question.
Okay, great. And that could be our next children's book, Gil. So that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So first, we're going to go to Mary Alice Nixon. Mary Alice, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
I don't have one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What was it that I'm sorry. I just was going to ask, but then he was talking about it, so I'm okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, let's go to Stephanie Meary.
Did she move?
Hi, I don't have one either under this, but thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Let's go to Maria Garcia.
Maria, can you unmute her, Sarah?
I have. Yeah, maybe she stepped away for a moment.
Okay.
Let's go to Elizabeth Bell. Okay, why don't I do this? I'm going to go ahead and lower everybody's hand. So if you do have a question you want to ask off mute to Gil, you can now raise your hand. And Gil, I'm going to come back to the chat if you have a number of questions in the chat.
Yeah.
UG says you must exclude subaward amount over 50,000. Does that part of the MTDC definition not apply if you choose to stay with the 25,000?
Okay, so that's good. So basically, MTDC gonna exclude anything right now. MTDC is excluding anything that above 25, and that amount going to increase to 50. And institution can decide to either stay at 25 or raise it up to all the way up to 50,000, and that would be exclude from the MTDC. So on the reverse side, you must know that the MTDC is the one that you can apply the indirect cost rate and recover indirect cost on it. But it's totally at the discretion of the university, to either stay at 25 or raise it up all the way up to $50,000. So I hope I answered that question.
For foreign organizations who do not have a negotiated rate agreement, will the indirect cost related changes come into effect on October 1, 2024?
So for foreign organization, it's a little bit different. So you need to, for anything that a foreign organization, you need to take a look at the agency regulation or the term and condition itself, because basically the uniform guidelines do not right now apply to foreign organization, but the agency, NIH may, I'm not entirely sure, or the State Departments or USAID may make it applicable, UG applicable to foreign organization. So in that case, if they make it applicable, then the rate, the 15% rate, they claim 10% before, and it go up to the 15, is going to be applicable on the fiscal year starting after 10/1 of 24. So if they start in 10/1, a lot of foreign entity probably, I would say, start on January 1 of a year. So that may be applicable in January 1 of 2025.
Okay. If our new IDC agreement gives equipment a definition of 5,000, do we follow 5,000 or 10,000 on federal awards?
Okay, so definitely 5,000. I mean, if your UDC rate is based on 5,000, you cannot change your equipment threshold to 10,000 until your rate is renegotiated. And renegotiation going to require you to prepare your indirect cost proposal, review and negotiate, and the new rate are set up. So you have to use your indirect cost rate that is current right now, and not changing your base at all. So your equipment's going to be still going to be 5,000 until your rate is negotiated.
Okay, we'll take one more question. So
Okay.
for the IDC proposal submission, it would then be only part of negotiations, not part of the proposal then?
Okay, say that again. Is that is that
So
proposal that already been submitted? Okay, say that again, Tara.
for the IDC proposal submission, it
Yes.
would then be only part of negotiations, not part of the proposal then?
No, the whole the whole proposal need to be prepared, including all the change in the threshold. So what I'm saying though is, if you have a proposal that already been submitted, it's in-house with the old MTDC, right? And then they still in the process of reviewing it. Then when they sit down with you, review your proposal and then negotiate, you can prepare an impact statement on what the threshold would do to the rate. And in most of the time, the simple example that I have there, is dropped by 3 points or something like that. So in that case, the only thing you need to do is that change on the impact of the threshold change. You don't have to do anything else if that's the case that proposal has been submitted. If you submit a new proposal, everything has to be factored in. You have to compute your O&M, you have to compute your interest cost and GA, DA, whatever. Everything needs to be in there.
Super. Well, that brings us to 3:30. Any last thoughts for us, Gil, before we close out?
Yeah, so I do have one last slide I want to share with you. And again, I really appreciate, this opportunity to talk with you about the change. Like I say, you can tell I'm very excited about it, the new and improved, uniform guidance. I want to leave you with this, Don Quixote code. And in my mind, all of us research administrator, like a little bit like Don Quixote, right? We a little bit crazy, a little bit eccentrics, but we always want to fight the good fight. We always want, we have the passion, and we all about, research and do the things right. So I want to leave you with this quote, from Don Quixote, the land that I visit, in Spain, is to dreams, the impossible dream, and that's my quest. And I wish you all a very nice afternoon. Thank you for coming. Tara, thank you for hosting. It has been wonderful. And let me know if I can do even more to answer a question or something like that. But other than that, happy implementation, and I will see you again, in at the national conference, in August. Take care.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Gil, so much. And to all of our participants for joining this afternoon. We will be posting the recording of this webinar and the handouts to our YouTube channel within the next 5 business days. And Incura will be publishing our updated Uniform Guidance Handbook once the FAQs are published. We wish you a great afternoon and look forward to having you with us again at a future Incura program. Take good care.
Bye.